Chemical reactions test. Serotonin is a chemical substance that acts as a neurotransmitter. It helps relay messages in the human brain. The formula for one molecule of serotonin is shown below. C10H12N2O. How many atoms in all are in a molecule of serotonin? Record your answer and fill in the bubbles on your answer document. Be sure to use the correct place value. Number 2. Which two elements on the periodic table are in the same period? 3. In the equation above, what is the coefficient of the reactant O2? Number 4. Which chemical reaction involves the fewest oxygen atoms? See the answer choices in your test booklet. How do you determine the number of oxygen atoms in the formula above? A. The number of oxygen atoms equals the coefficient of 3 plus subscript 3 equals 6. B. Number of oxygen atoms equals coefficient 3 times subscript 3 equals 9. C. Number of oxygen atoms equals subscript 1 times coefficient 3 equals 3. D. Number of oxygen atoms equals subscript 3 plus coefficient 1 equals 4. Number 6. As part of an investigation, students combined substances in a beaker to observe chemical reactions. They performed two procedures. They measured the mass of each substance before and after each reaction. The table shows their observations. See the table in your test booklet. Assuming the students did not make any careless errors, what likely explains these changes in mass? See the answer choices in your test booklet. F. Procedure 1. All the reactants were liquids that evaporated. Procedure 2. A gas was formed as one product and it escaped into the air. G. Procedure 1. One of the reactants was converted to thermal energy. Procedure 2. All the products were liquids. H. Procedure 1. The reactants were liquids with different densities. Procedure 2. The reactants were combined into only one product. J. Procedure 1. One of the products was a gas that escaped into the air. Procedure 2. A gas from the air reacted with one of the other reactants. Number 7. 4 students were asked to complete a table for a science assignment. Each student selected one chemical element from each of the 4 groups in the periodic table and then classified each element as a metal, a nonmetal, or a metalloid. Which table was completed correctly? Please see your test booklet for answer choices. 8. Sulfur hexafluoride, SF6, is a very stable, non-flammable gas at room temperature. It is used in many electronic products because it is a good electrical insulator. Which statement describes the composition of sulfur hexafluoride? F. SF6 is a compound containing atoms of sulfur and fluorine. G. SF6 is a compound that contains 7 identical atoms. H. SF6 is an element with sulfur in the atom's nucleus and fluorine outside the nucleus. J. SF6 is an organic compound composed of long chains of sulfur atoms surrounded by fluorine atoms. 9. A chemist added hydrochloric acid to a sample of baking soda in a beaker. Immediately, the mixture of the two chemicals began to fizz and bubble. Which of the following observations about the fizzing mixture provides evidence of a chemical reaction? A. The temperature of the beaker did not change. B. A substance escaped from the beaker in the form of a gas. C. Most of the baking soda appeared to dissolve in the acid. D. Some of the baking soda remained at the bottom of the beaker. Number 10. In the chemical equation above, the large number called the coefficient represents F. The number of molecules of that substance in the reaction. G. The number of atoms of each element in the molecule. H. The amount of energy in that substance. J. Numbers divisible by the subscript. 11. Samara put a quantity of sulfur, a yellow powder, into a test tube. She gently heated the tube and observed that the powder turned black. What happened? A. The sulfur underwent a physical change called melting. B. The sulfur underwent a chemical change called burning. C. The sulfur underwent a chemical change called melting. D. The sulfur underwent a physical change called burning. 12. Identify the reactants in the chemical equation above. 13. Annalise conducted an experiment by applying heat to aluminum, paper, water, and wax. The results to her experiment are shown below in the table. Aluminum, no effect. Paper, caught fire. Water, gave off steam. Wax, melted. Which substance went through a chemical reaction? A. Water. B. Aluminum. C. Wax. D. Paper. 14. All of the following reactions are correctly balanced except directions. The diagram below shows what happens when iron filings are added to copper sulfate solution. Use the diagram to answer any questions that may follow. 15. Which of the following does not indicate that a chemical reaction occurred when the iron filings were added to the copper sulfate? A. The final solution formed bubbles. B. The volume of the solution increased. C. The color of the solution changed. D. The temperature increased. 16. Ammonium phosphate, a chemical common in many fertilizers, has the following chemical formula. How many hydrogen atoms are found in the most basic unit of ammonium phosphate? Record your answer and fill in the bubbles on your answer document. Be sure to use the correct place value. 17. Which equation demonstrates the law of conservation of mass? 18. A researcher wants to experiment with an element that reacts like phosphorus but has a greater atomic mass. Which element should the researcher select for the experiment? F. Nitrogen. G. Sulfur. H. Arsenic. J. Silicon. 19. According to the chemical compounds table above, how many atoms of hydrogen are in ethanol? 20. A chemical reaction in which calcium carbonate is decomposed results in the production of two simpler compounds. What mass of calcium carbonate to the nearest hundredth of a gram is decomposed in this reaction? Record your answer and fill in the bubbles on your answer document. Be sure to use the correct place value. 21. During an investigation, a student combined the two clear, colorless solutions shown below. The student observed that the temperature changed from 25 degrees Celsius to 23 degrees Celsius when the solutions were combined, and that a white substance rapidly formed and settled to the bottom of the container. What most likely happened to produce these results? A. One of the original compounds came out of the solution. B. The solutions reacted chemically. C. Some of the water froze into ice crystals. D. Rapid evaporation of water occurred, leaving a solid. 22. The equation below represents a chemical reaction that occurs in living cells. How many atoms are represented in the reactants of this equation? 23. Strontium phosphate is a crystalline substance used in medicine and industry. How many phosphorus atoms are represented in the formula for strontium phosphate? 24. A scientist spilled a few drops of dilute hydrochloric acid on a lab table. For safety purposes, the scientist sprinkled some baking soda onto the spill. Which observation would provide the best evidence that a chemical reaction occurred? F. The baking soda and hydrochloric acid combined and bubbles formed. G. The baking soda absorbed the hydrochloric acid. H. Some of the baking soda dissolved in the hydrochloric acid. J. The hydrochloric acid evaporated, leaving only the baking soda. 25. The table shows the chemical formulas for 4 substances. Which substances have the same number of carbon atoms? A. Substances 1 and 2. B. Substances 2, 3, and 4. C. Substances 2 and 3 only. D. Substances 1 and 3. 26. Nitrogen dioxide is a gas that can be generated by emissions from vehicles and factories. It can also be generated by natural sources such as forest fires, lightning, and microbial activity in soil. The equation for producing nitrogen dioxide is shown below. Which of these provides evidence that a chemical reaction occurs? F. A gas is present. G. The total number of atoms remains unchanged. H. The state of matter remains the same. J. A gas is produced. A brown gas is produced. 27. Scientists' observations. Investigation 1. Observations after two liquids are combined. The temperature of the combined liquids increased and a solid substance formed. Investigation 2. The temperature of the combined liquids decreased and bubbles formed. Investigation 3. One liquid settled to the bottom of the beaker and the other liquid rose to the top. Investigation 4. The combined liquids turned from clear to a bright purple. In which investigation is it least likely that the liquids reacted chemically? 28. The diagram below shows an atom of an element from the periodic table. This atom is most likely F, potassium, G, fluorine, H, beryllium, J, boron. 29. A student obtains 2 strips of magnesium ribbon that are each 3 centimeters long. One strip of magnesium is placed in a test tube containing 5 milliliters of water, and the other strip is placed in a test tube containing 5 milliliters of hydrochloric acid. Both liquids are at room temperature. The student's observations are recorded in the table. Test tube 1, magnesium in water. No observable activity takes place. The temperature of the water remains constant. A lit match placed near the mouth of the test tube continues to burn. The appearance of the metal does not change. Test tube 2, magnesium and hydrochloric acid. Bubbling occurs on the surface of the magnesium. The temperature of the liquid increases. A lit match placed near the mouth of the test tube makes a popping sound and goes out. The metal strip gradually becomes smaller until nothing is left except for a clear liquid. Which statement is not supported by the student's observations? A. A chemical reaction takes place between magnesium and hydrochloric acid. B. A gas is released in test tube 2. C. The substances in both test tubes are reactive only at high temperatures. D. Energy is released in the reaction involving hydrochloric acid. 30. For an investigation, a student poured a blue solution of CuSO into a beaker. The student placed a shiny silver-colored strip of zinc metal in the solution and observed changes. The student inferred that a chemical reaction occurred. What evidence best supports this inference? F. A dark solid formed on the zinc metal. G. The zinc metal remains silver-colored and shiny. H. The CuSO4 solution turned blue when the zinc metal was added. J. None of these.